Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best magic red prince build in Divinity Original Sin 2. We'll be going with a pyrokinetic and summoning combination here, which is quite synergetic due to the fact that his Dragon's Blaze ability here leaves a fire surface behind for a single action point. This means that we can use that to be able to summon in our incarnate, and it'll have a fire-based attack, so we can actually do quite a bit of damage. And we're going to go with some other versions of fire spells with the elemental affinity, giving us a cheap cost for these. And with this setup, we can get our fire resistance over 125%, meaning that we're going to be healing anytime that we take fire damage, which is even greater because we can walk into it to give ourselves cheaper spells, like a 2 action point cost laser ray, a 1 action point fireball. And using the 5-star diner with soulmate means we can actually heal our teammates insanely well, but typically when we're in combat, we want to start with our summon conjure incarnate here. Now, fire is typically going to be the best and works well on this build. Our first turn is about setting up with that and then also summoning in our elemental totems. We can also throw in things like our infusements here to be able to power it up if we wanted to. But I think for the first turn, it's best to just summon in another one here just to be able to give a bit of extra chip damage against enemies. You can see there we got around 200 damage here at level 15. Our incarnate also gets a fireball spell here, which is insanely good because it's going to set up fire surfaces for us to deal damage elsewhere. You also want to I'd recommend summoning this beside the enemy for a free attack. Now for an overview of this build, we're going to be going with an attribute score of, we need a bit of memory here due to the number of spells that we have prepared. Now we got intelligence here for our pyrokinetic based skills. These don't actually apply to our summoning. So if you want it to be a bit more tanky, you can take all the intelligence points. I'd actually recommend leaving about 12 points there for gear and then putting them into our constitution, which is going to give us higher vitality. This is great because we have a great ability to heal. So you can dump that and take a more defensive approach. In the mid game, it's I think a little bit better to go with a higher constitution score, and then later on in the game you can go higher in the intelligence. And I would probably spread my stats somewhere around, might go 14 intelligence, 27 constitution, and 24 memory is the number I like to shoot for. When it comes to our abilities, the summoning skill, we need to get this to 10 as soon as possible. This is important because this gives us our incarnate's champion form, which is so much better. And this is going to give it 100% more vitality, damage, and physical and magical armor, which is great for its survivability. And we also can take like the fire slug to give ourselves another summon if ours goes down. But honestly, in terms of combat, I don't find that the incarnate goes down that often. But we want to rush that to 10 points and then put the rest into our pyrokinetic. I don't really have gear that's giving me much else here, but if you did, a point into scoundrel or 2 points in scoundrel can sometimes be nice. And the huntsman can give us some traps, which the fire traps are pretty powerful, but we're going to run with the 12 summoning and 12 pyrokinetic. And for our talents, the elemental affinity is a huge one here because as you saw, we can get basically make it so fire heals us, and then we're going to be getting healing and casting spells in that. It's pretty crazy stuff. This is due to the 5-star diner. I think this is an insane perk. Once you get to level 13, always have this equipped because it's going to double any potion or food item. And if you got a potion that gives you 50% fire resistance, it's going to be 100% with other buffs that can push you over the edge to get healing back from it. I also like to have the far out man on this build because with the totems and our summons, we can shoot them out a little bit further. So this is good because we can position our character a little bit better. I think this is a nice one to have. Hothead will give us increased critical hit chance on our fire-based skills, and Savage Sword Edge will also boost that up. But I think those aren't as important as being able to get into combat, get the cheaper spells, do them from a longer range, and heal ourselves a little bit more effectively. You could also go with that 1 point into Scoundrel. You do have to invest it there to get yourself the pawn, which will let us move around, which is nice because you can use some different skills and walk into fire to give yourselves the cheaper ones. I also like Glass Cannon if you're able to get some Necromancer, but that's kind of spreading ourselves thin, especially on a build like this. So I find that this setup works best. Now you can also roll, if you don't want to use a shield, you can use a staff and use ambidextrous, which is kind of nice, but we're kind of starved for action points, so it's kind of best to go with these here. And our skills where it's all coming together. Now, the two most important ones are Conjure Incarnate here. Again, at level 10, we get the champion version, which is very important. Doesn't scale off our intelligence, just our summoning skills, same as the elemental totem. Our number one thing to do in combat is set up this and set up this as soon as possible. Then on our second turn, we can go into the power infusion here. If it's up close against an enemy with a lot of health, I'd start with this. But if they're far away or near an enemy that's low on health, I'd recommend using the Farsight infusion because then they can pick away targets at range. Both of these increases damage by 25%, and it's going to be hitting harder than your teammates at a certain point. It's pretty crazy. You can also get the Shadow Infusion here, which gives it more of a stealthy approach. Don't really love it that much. It's another action point you'd be putting on in a turn later, but you can go with this if you want. The Warp is also a nice one to give it some mobility here, but I like to go with some of the other skills here. Now, Rallying Cry is actually kind of an interesting one, so it'll have it so that your character regenerates vitality and magic armor according to the number of allied characters and totems in their area. So if you have a lot of these down, it can actually be a pretty effective way to boost up a teammate. I like this, but it's not necessary. I like to have a bit of support here, and things like Soulmate. Now, 5-star Diner makes this insane. You bind yourself to a character, so if you have one of your teammates that's frozen, stunned, or knocked down, and even petrified, cast this on them right away, because it's going to remove those negative statuses, which are really, really bad to have on you. And you're going to be getting all healing and armor restoration. So you can start spamming away with potions, and especially with the 5-star Diner, you can literally give them a full heal in one or the 2 action points, the one to cast this and one to use a potion. Pretty and crazy stuff. And the big boss in the Alice Allison in Act 2 gets destroyed by this combination. Now, I also like to have Dimensional Bolt here. This is a bit random. It's going to shoot a random elemental damage type out and creates a surface where we can summon from. I only like this if you don't really have anything else that you can do. You could shoot that and then pop the incarnate from it, but typically we don't have a high initiative load order, so we're going second when surfaces are set up for us. I also like the Door to Eternity. This is actually pretty crazy if you time it right. Gives all summons and totems around you a status that prevents them from dying from damage or disappearing when their life runs out. So if you got a lot of summons out, you can pop this and keep them going, and it's pretty insane what you can do with this, especially if you got like Rallying Cry afterwards. You can heal your entire team back. Summons are pretty overpowered in Divinity Original Sin 2. Now, on to our pyrokinetic skills. Ignition, very powerful skill because this is a huge area of effect, and if there's oil or anything on the ground, it goes boom. We also want to have Fireball, 1 action point if we're in a fire surface that's likely going to heal us if we have a potion active, and it does a good amount of damage in a large area of effect, and it also sets up a surface for our incarnates to summon from. Searing Dagger's the same thing. You can actually shoot these at the ground if you wanted your summon to be at a certain area. It shoots out 3 of these in a 1 action point cost when you're on a fire surface. Laser Ray, good fire damage, especially if you can get them in a line. I like this one just for the damage output. I also like Supernova. It will hurt you. However, again, if you have 5-star Diner with a fire resistance potion, it's actually going to heal you. Kind of crazy at that point. Feels a little bit like cheating, but it's strong. It's something in the game. Fire Whip's nice. If the target has no magic armor, you can blind them for a turn, which is pretty useful. I also like Haste, pretty good buff. Same thing as Peace of Mind, giving a +8 to Wits and a +4 to your Strength, Finesse, and Intelligence. It's a good buff, and it can also remove Charmed, Enraged, and Madness, which is super useful just to have, just like we have the Soulmate there to remove any of those negative effects. And I also like to have the Summon Fire Slug here. This is actually a summoning skill that's based on our pyrokinetic. So it depends on our caster's level and summoning skills. So we got a decent summoning skill. It's pretty effective. I don't like to, you can only have this or the incarnate. I just want to mention that. So that's only if the incarnate goes down. It only has a 1 action point cost, so it's not that bad. And this has a 6-turn cooldown, so you might have to pop the Fire Slug sometimes. But it's not the end of the world. I think it's better than not having anything out. We also want to have the Spontaneous Combustion. So if there's a target with 3 turns of burning. I also should mention the Torturer talent is pretty good because you can apply your fire debuffs. But I have others on the team that can do that for us, so we can combust them with this skill here. And Meteor Shower, huge damage. I also mentioned that the mass traps from the Huntsman and Pyrokinetic can work good if you have the investment there, but this one's just pure fire damage. It's usually pretty good if you have your intelligence leveled up high. So with this Spectre on Constitution, we have 1,500 health here without really min-maxing it, compared to my others, the Necromancer-esh build, which has 700 here. So yeah, you can get some pretty high health with this. Now, our gear setup is pretty tricky. So I actually was able to get my Pyrokinetic up to 12 here and 14 summoning with the gear that we got. It's really just the best that you can find. You want to obviously prioritize summoning number 1. That's going to be the one that you want to get up as quickly as possible. This isn't really that great, but you're looking for those boosts to summoning and Pyrokinetic. Health is not bad as well. Like if you can get increased vitality, or Constitution even, and that can be a pretty useful option. Look for the biggest shield or highest amount of physical and magical armor because we want to protect that health bar too. And yeah, that's kind of the vibe we're looking for. I have a 35% critical hit chance, which is pretty solid. So if we want to launch off our fire spells, we're going to hit them. But priority obviously is to be able to set up our summons first. So into combat here. We got second in the load order, or the initiative order here, which is perfect because I was able to have someone drop down Fireball and then use the Searing Daggers here. Now, our trick is we want to, if we had the palm, we could walk into the fire surface there, but we don't. So we can have someone else set a fire on us later on. We can use the Conjure Incarnate here. So this is the first step that we always want to do. I should have moved it right beside the summon there so we could punch it. But we want to put this down and then our elemental totems there. Again, putting the Incarnate beside an enemy so we can do a melee attack right away. because now it would have to walk to be able to do that. But it's got Fireball, which is great, because this is going to further set up areas of effect for us to be able to summon in more totems that'll be fire-based. You don't have to worry, because this is fire-proof, so you can just continually fire away at it. A little trick, if you have someone with Pawn, you can actually use and also the Phoenix Die Warfare skill. You can have them just jump down to the ground, set up a fire surface below you, and they can just walk onto the fire too with the Pawn to be able to cast their fire skills for cheap. So this actually works out really well on a bunch of different teams. And just a heads up, if you play with fire, it can have some very bad consequences, like Necrofire popping up everywhere. But on our next turn, the thing is, we're going to summon in another elemental totem here, and using 2 of our 4 action points. Don't really recommend Glass Cannon on this, because it's just going to make the enemies go right after you. We're then going to throw on Power Infusion onto our Incarnate here, and then go ahead with the Farsight Infusement as well. Unless there's someone that we could hit with Soulmate and chug a potion or something like that, it's typically best to then use our second turn for setup again, and then we can get to Blast. And, oh, that was nice. They picked up a kill. And then our summon was able to finish the job by shooting another round of fire. So yeah, summoning's really strong, because once you get those totems going, they do like as much as a normal attack. So if you got a few of them out, over a few turns, they're dealing quite a bit of damage. Our Incarnate's quite strong as well, and also can not be bothered by our fire damage, so we can get the full team going with that. And we also have the Summon Slug here. If that falls, we then have this, which is not amazing, but it's got 1,000 health and quite a bit of magic shields with 900 there at level 15. It also comes with Laser Ray and the Slug Rush, which can knock targets down. It's resisted by magical armor, which is a little bit different. So I actually think this works very well in a team. But yeah, this is one of the best builds, I would believe, for the Red Prince in Divinity Original Sin 2. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and we'll catch you all in the next one.